Friends, I found a new resource, and who doesn't love a new resource and it's free? This is going to be good. This is what happened. I was left with a hole in my schedule. I had already paced out my unit, was ready to go. Now, because of some school things that had to happen to one of my A-Day classes, it was going to put my B-Day class ahead of them, right? They were going to be missing a day. So at first I was just going to work with it, but then I realized it was going to mess up all of my planning and my pacing and everything. And that's not what I wanted to do. So I decided to add in a lesson that would be a great way to jump off this unit that I've already planned. Whenever I'm planning lessons for my unit though, I always look at my assessment. I think that's a great best practice to start with the end in mind. Look at what you want students to do by the end of the unit and then use that to guide what you create and the things and the skills that you teach and what you do throughout. Also, this semester, I'm starting a new way of doing homework. Once a week, students will have a question. They'll be responsible for answering that question. The question will relate to what we've been reading. And then after they answer the question and give their opinion, they'll be responsible for responding to 2 of their peers about their responses, right? So a way to build some more collaboration. So then I came up with a lesson that would do both of those things for me. Yay! I decided that I wanted to have students write a argumentative paragraph based on some kind of short article or something that we discussed during class that one day. I began searching for questions and things that I could have students answer, some kind of juicy, good question that students can answer, and found a link that said 1,000 questions for teens to answer. So when I clicked the link, it turned out to be the New York Times, and they have a whole section for teachers and for teens, and I was very, very excited. There really are 1,000 questions, y'all. And so I happened to stumble across one question that I found especially exciting, especially because, we're in distance learning right now, about technology. And if technology brings us closer together or makes us feel lonely. Perfect, okay? So now we're ready to rock and roll. I've got my question and I'm going to have them answer it, and they're going to respond to each other's responses based on this question. But not only that, these questions have short articles that are linked to them. They give them a little background information. And then when I clicked on this one, it had a video that went with it as well. This was the jackpot. Yes, it's the teacher jackpot, right? We've won. I've got a nice article they can read, very, very short. I've got a video that we can watch, all 2-minute video. That's gonna be great. And a great question for them to answer, to practice forming an opinion, writing an argument. Yes, we've hit the jackpot. So now let me show you how I planned out this lesson. And after I show you how I took this and turned it into a lesson, I'll give you some suggestions on how you can take this New York Times question and turn it into an entire unit. Let's get into it. First, before I show you my lesson, let me show you this website from the New York Times, which is so amazing. So it's the New York Times and the Learning Network. I forgot what that was previously. But as you can see, it says over 1,000 writing prompts, and there really are 1,000 writing prompts. What? It's so awesome. And they organize them by all the types. So technology, arts and entertainment, school and career, identity and family, social life, leisure time, science and health, civics and history, right? So these can connect to so many topics, whether you are teaching English or not. There's so many ways. If you are a teacher who does a lot of interdisciplinary work, where you and another colleague in the school, you guys work together, like you and a social studies teacher or whatnot. So many different options. And like I said, all of these questions then link to small articles and things that you can use. And some of them have pictures or videos that are attached
as well. So for example, this question about how young is too young to use social media, this isn't the question I used, but I think this is a really cool one, especially for middle school students, because there's so many young people now who have social media pages and YouTube channels and all kinds of stuff, right? So they've got the cool picture. And then as you can see, this stuff, it's not too much, but right. And then there's questions like follow-up questions for them to ask. And then it links them to other things, right? Like you can link it links you to other articles, all kinds of stuff. Like this links you to an even longer article. What? All this stuff is so great. So when you're building a unit, you totally have all these things that you can use. I will say this, I did not subscribe to the Times, but I did create a teacher account that allows me to use all of this stuff from the Learning Network. And that was free $99. You know we like that. That's our favorite price. Thinking about what I want students to do. Because we're in distance learning, one of the promises that I made myself for this semester is that we are always having a check-in question. So I wanted to make our check-in question themed around social media, of course, because why not? So the question is, what's your favorite social media platform? Who's your favorite person to follow? So this is a question that's super quick, very easy. I also just, some housekeeping stuff for them. Very easy. As students are checking in, students are also answering this. Then I always have a warm-up. My warm-ups are called Writing into the Day. I don't want this one to take too long. So they are just talking about the benefits versus the problems of using social media and technology. I tell them to list as many as they can. I'm going to call on some students randomly to share some of their answers really quick just to get us into it. Then I'm going to introduce our overarching question. And remember, this question is the one that I found from our great resource, the New York Times Learning Network, those 1,000 questions. Wonderful. And then from that New York Times article, remember I said there was a video attached. So I did not find this video on YouTube. This video came with that New York Times article and the question and everything that I found. So we watched the video. That's the piece of the text I wanted to include. I didn't want to make this where we read the text together because I try to make it a practice that because I teach high school, if it's a text that I know is not at their reading level, we don't read it together. And so for me, I prefer for us to use the time to look at this video and really pull out all of the things in this short video and using this more as our rich text to jump off the discussion. Question again, just to reiterate what they're thinking about. And then it's time for them to write. So here are the instructions. Because this is a pretty straightforward assignment, they're writing an argumentative paragraph. And because I'm also using this as a way to kind of gauge what they already can do, I make the instructions pretty loose. I'm not going to tell them what thesis statement to include or like how they need to introduce their paragraph, how they need to introduce their evidence. I don't want to do any of that because 1, we're in the middle of the year. 2, I want to use this as a way to gauge where students are and what other pieces I need to include as far as writing argumentative work as we go throughout the year.
Now, here are some suggestions if you want to make an entire nonfiction unit out of one of those questions from the New York Times website. So one of the ways I always develop my units is with a essential question. And so these New York Times articles are perfect because they give great essential questions that you can use as an overarching theme to guide your unit. Now, so let's say you're working with the question I have about technology and if it's bringing us closer or making us lonely. Here's what I would do. I would use the New York Times website, use that one article that I mentioned with the video and everything. I would add in another article from there because they have some that are pictures. And the one thing that I always tell my students is that anything that we can gather information from is a text. So considering that we are in the 21st century and pictures, social media, YouTube videos, articles, op-eds, books, all of these things exist, that means all of them our text, and we need to learn how to understand and read and break down all of them. Use News ELA. They have great articles that you can level. And then the kicker, I want to add an op-ed piece or a research piece where it's showing some research around like students or teens and their brains, or like people in their brains when it comes to technology, something that includes a bit of data, right? So students are getting a variety of texts that they're evaluating and having to synthesize all of those texts together to create some kind of argument about the overarching question. Don't that sound good? Don't it sound like you're getting points on your teacher evaluation? Yes. Your New York Times, the original article that sets off the unit, you've got some type of picture or photo to add into that unit. Then you've got a couple of articles from News ELA. And then you add in another article or op-ed piece that includes hardcore research, something that's really going to push students in their reading and analysis of text. Now, how do you end all that with your assessment? Of course, you have your argumentative essay where they're picking a side on this topic using the evidence from the unit as their evidence to support their claim. And then if you want to add a creative piece, which is what I love for students to do, I want them to create some kind of visual representation that argues their position for them. So whether that's creating a digital piece or something in person with hands-on, or a painting, or whatever the case, however you decide and whatever you feel best, or an infographic, all kinds of creative things that can be done. But that essay and some kind of creative piece that wraps it all in a nice little bow as their assessment. It would be great. So the reason why this resource is so great is because you essentially have 1,000 essential questions, right? It's amazing. You can use it to make a one-day lesson. You can use this as a guide to build out an entire unit. You can assign these as an independent question, or this could build out to be a substitute assignment, right? So many possibilities, and I love it. So I hope you get to use this resource and it proves to be very helpful for you. Now let's continue the conversation. In the comments, tell me, did you use this resource? How did it go? Or do you have another resource that you love using for nonfiction text? Come on, let's grow together. Now, if you found this video helpful, make sure you hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe so we can be teacher friends. As always, thank you so much for watching, and you are amazing. Bye.